I would describe it as a success story. When you consider where we started roughly 20 years ago, before SEPA or the first Payment Services Directive came into force, we had a very scattered landscape across Europe. We had high cross-border fees for payments. So I think the first PSD has brought a lot of harmonization in the market. Back then, 27 member states, excluding Croatia, with a new authorization regime, a new category of service providers which have been created, the payments institutions. You also had, or you have harmonized consumer protection rules. You have information requirements which have been harmonized. So I would think from that perspective, the market has made a big step forward. There's a lot more competition now in the market. And the bank payments have been harmonized. SEPA standards are now applying kind of to credit transfers and direct debit. And there are various new initiatives underway, driven by the European Central Bank in the SEPA context, which I think will drive the market further. And the last evolution is the Payment Services Directive number 2, which is yet another, I think, push for a stronger single market with new providers being included, payment initiation service providers and account information service providers in particular. And I think that will make a big difference. Kind of the banks will get both partners and competitors. I think the PSD2 will lead to more competition. Obviously, the PSD2 brings in a new category of service providers into its scope, payment initiation service providers, and also account information service providers. I think this opens the door for big data platforms, or also smaller providers, to offer really convenient service using the banking infrastructure for that purpose. So I think that will, from a consumer perspective, lead to various benefits, a lot of convenience, but at the same time, in the market there will be competition between established providers, such as the banks, and many new operators benefiting from that new framework. I think the cumulative impact is difficult to assess because you have so many different layers of regulation. In most cases, they don't contradict with each other, but in some areas kind of you have overlap. The industry has complained in the past about overlap between anti-money laundering rules and data protection rules. There may be a tension between the convenience consumers seek going forward and data protection rules, which are probably more restrictive in nature. I think it does, because we see a lot of innovation kind of taking place in Europe. I think the European Commission is reacting kind of to this trend. They are now consulting the market on their approach on FinTech. They are proposing technical neutrality, which is key. They're proposing also proportionality, and they are considering, for instance, also regulatory sandbox approaches. I think this all kind of this is the right approach to try it, to test it, to give the industry also kind of a platform to innovate. Otherwise, you may end up with the Uberization of financial services, kind of where providers may offer services at the borderline, very much probably more disrupting kind of the market than following kind of the Commission's approach with the regulatory sandboxes.
Well, we can say that the PSD2 will bring some very tangible changes, positive changes for consumers. I can name few of those changes. For instance, the fact that the new payment service providers will be regulated by the PSD2, and so it's important that all providers on the market are regulated, and their liability is covered also, is made clear. Second point is about the ban on payment surcharges. The PSD2 will ban the payment surcharges for the payments that consumers, for instance, make online to buy airline ticket. This kind of surcharges to pay Visa credit card additional charge will be forbidden. Also, what is important is the PSD2 gives consumers an unconditional refund right for using direct debit. In case something happens, the consumer will have a refund right unconditionally. Also, the PSD2 has a better consumer-friendly approach regarding the liability in case of fraud in relation to payments. So it brings consumers' liability further down to €50 compared to €150 currently in the PSD1. But if I may just add, one of our biggest concern with the PSD2, it's related to the delegated act which is currently being discussed, the famous draft RTS which has been published by EBA a few weeks ago. We are concerned with the fact that the proposal of the EBA is not in line with the spirit of the PSD2 in relation to the strong customer authentication issue. There are too many derogations in the proposal of the EBA, and we think that derogations should not take the more importance than the main principle of strong authentication. Can just maybe also giving concrete example might help in relation to the instant payments, because consumers, merchants, I guess, also expect that the payments become more, user-friendly. And there is a now initiative which has been developed, a scheme on instant SEPA credit transfer by the banking industry. I don't know if it has already entered into force or will do so soon. It brings huge potential to develop alternative means of payments, more innovative means of payments based on instant credit transfer, which could also offer an alternative to consumers, for instance, for online purchases or transferring money between the consumers. It is very difficult for me, and I don't think it is our role to assess the cumulative impact. It's more to the Commission and the policymakers. But as I just pointed out, there are some positive changes in the PSD2, but we have also a big concern. But also we have to take into account the recent action plan of the Commission, which also makes some proposals in relation to payments. One of the actions that the Commission will undertake is the revision of the regulation on the equality of charges for cross-border payments in euro, and the Commission is planning to extend this regulation to all EU currencies. We see this as a welcome development that will bring down the cost of cross-border payments involving different currencies and can contribute effectively to the integration of the EU market.
I think that SEPA is a major achievement. We have seen the migration from national schemes into the SEPA schemes, SEPA credit transfer, SEPA direct debit, as of 2014. This builds clearly the basis for an integrated market in Europe. This does not mean that we have achieved everything. There are still things to be done in the area of cards, or also for SEPA direct debits. We need e-mandates, and also for innovative payment solutions, we need solutions, integrated solutions for the benefit of Europe. Indeed, I think this is even a basis for innovative firms, because the SEPA frameworks offer them access to the whole European market. Often these innovative solutions, they start at a limited geographical scope, and if they grow in importance, they also want to extend further into Europe. And that is where the SEPA framework will help. And we have to be very careful and diligent in order to see that these innovative solutions have the proper access to Europe. And that's why we are also working particularly for instant payments and also for payment initiation service on a solution that is good for an integrated European market. Well, this is a difficult question, and I guess you will probably also get different answers for that, depending on whom you speak to. Some people complain that there's too much regulations, others even complain that there's too little, because regulation also offers a level playing field for all different actors. So we have different regulatory regimes before in national markets. Now we have this on a pan-European basis, and everybody plays by the same rules. However, we also have to be careful that we do not over-regulate. Too much regulation will also hamper innovation. But I think we have achieved a pretty good balance, and what is important is that we also build on the cooperation between market participants, and this is where the European Retail Payment Board plays a crucial role in order to bring market participants together to find solutions for an innovative, at the strategic level, an innovative payments landscape in Europe.
I think FinTech is going to be very influential in the payments landscape of tomorrow because it's going to open many possibilities for the consumer, for the citizen, to do things really the way he or she wants to, and more rapidly, and be in control of his or her decisions and in control of the data. And obviously with the opportunities of passporting across the EU, we think it's going to increase competition and also offer better prices and value eventually. The role of Bitcoin, I'm not sure it's going to go much beyond being an object of speculation that it is now, but I think the blockchain has tremendous potential to be utilized for other things other than virtual currency. That said, for micropayments, because of the possibility to cut Bitcoin down, many decimal points, it is possible that Bitcoin could come in as a use for paying for views of, let's say, something on the internet seamlessly, but then I think it has to be more user-friendly than it is now for, the regular citizen. I think blockchain technology is going to be very effective in multiple sectors, but I think I would be attributing myself more wisdom than probably I have to say exactly which ones. There's huge potential in areas if we look at post-trading, clearance, RegTech, payments, and others. Exactly in which one of these areas the proof of concepts and the pilots are going to come to fruition with a sustainable service is something that it's hard from my side to predict, but very much with our collaboration with the blockchain community, we want to support it with a pro-innovation framework and to see that this is something that will be a blockchain revolution happening in Europe. I think there is a lot of space in the current regulatory framework utilizing instruments like proportionality and a lot of the discretion that is left to the regulator. At the same time, I think we can look to the future and see the way that instruments like regulatory sandboxes could also come together with the data protection authorities in the member states, and as we move to implementation of the general data protection regulation, to see where we can find win-wins that protect privacy, enhance security, and at the same time offer new and innovative services to the consumer.